Hi, I'm Richard.
I'm Margot.
This is week 2 of our Balboa Fundamentals class at Wednesday Night Hop, March 2016. Tonight, we did a quick review of the stuff that we'd covered last week with the Willie Desktop Basic, and then we also worked on the new material. We talked about Maxie.
Yes, Maxidorf. Look him up, Maxiedorf. We watched some wonderful videos by him with Sylvia Sykes, and if you Google either one of them, you'll get some great footage to watch.
And then we learned the Maxi Basic, also called the Uphold Basic.
Yeah, we worked on it
in place to begin with. So it's a step, step, gather, step, 5, 6, 7, and step, step, gather, step, 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 gather, step, 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 gather, and step, step, gather. We talked a little bit about the slight sideways lilt in the gather as you shift your weight from one side to the other and just gather the weight underneath one hip, and the feel of that in the partnership. Then we took it moving back and forth. So the lead's footwork goes back at the beginning, 5, 6, 7, and step, step, gather, step, step, gather. Follower's footwork goes forward to begin with, step, step, gather, step. Then we partnered up. We talked about the connection. Leads, again, reminder that we're trying to connect between the right shoulder blade and the right hip bone.
Follows down the center, and we talked a little bit about shoes, the idea that we want to make sure that our weight is over the front part of our foot so that we are leaning into each other as opposed to relaxing away from each other like Lindy hoppers.
And the heels help.
The advantage that heels will give you. If you're dancing in flats, think about keeping your feet flat, but your weight angled forward.
No virtual heels.
No virtual heels. You will hurt yourself over time.
Nice connection. Give the nice hug.
Pat, pat.
Maintain that connection, and then we did that basic together as a partnership. 5, 6, 7, and step, step, gather, step, 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 gather, step, step, gather, step, 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 gather, step, step. So you can definitely see the definite start sideways sort of lilting feel on the gather as the weight is shifted underneath the hip. Gather, step, 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 gather, step.
We talked about the idea of making sure that our feet stay in contact with the floor on this particular move. We're not actually working on the styling where we're lifting our feet yet. That'll come later.
And the gathers were just basically bringing the arch of the foot to the heel of the other foot in the other direction. Gather, step, gather, step. After that, we did a quarter turn to the lead's left, counterclockwise.
And how did the lead?
The footwork starts out with it's a downhold footwork at the beginning on the first half of it. Step, step, turn. So on count 2, we're starting to turn our upper bodies, and count 3, we put our foot on the floor facing 90 degrees in the other direction.
Leads, remember that since you are stepping and bringing your foot through, you want to make sure that your partnership stays close, but off to the side. If you've been dancing with your partner and they're squared off in front, when you try to bring your foot through, weird things happen. So make sure that they're off at this corner angle.
And then to finish it off, we just did the second half of an uphold basic. Step, step, gather, step. So the whole thing together looks like a step, prep, turn, step, step, gather, step. From the back, you have a step, prep, turn, and step, step, gather, step.
And with a partner,
we have a step, prep, turn, step, step, gather, step. Again, step, step, turn, step, step, gather, step. And each one's about a quarter of a rotation.
Follows, I'm making sure that I do not step early on 3. While Richard's turning, my weight is still in a gather until we actually commit to finishing that turn, and then I step down on basically 4, which is the gather step.
Then we took that rotational energy that we built up in the quarter turn and we added it to a paddle. Paddles counterclockwise. We talked about being able to paddle in any direction, so we did it by ourselves to begin with, where you put your weight on one foot and you paddle around.
Paddle around to the front.
And then paddle around to the back with the other foot.
The other foot.
Or paddle to the front in the other direction.
Front.
Or paddle back in the other direction.
Backwards.
But for the partnership, since we had just done that quarter turn counterclockwise, we only did counterclockwise turns in partnership. You can work on the clockwise turns on your own. Try to figure that out before next week's class. That's the video challenge. But so the quarter turn sets up the paddle quite nicely. You do this step, quarter turn, and paddle step, weight change. So you shift your weight over to the other side. And that then sets you up to continue the rotation in the opposite direction. Paddle, 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 and weight change. You can do as many of these as you want. Paddle, and weight change.
You can do many paddles in a row without the weight change.
Paddle, 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 and weight change. And then whenever you're ready, you do the second half of basic. Step, step, gather, step to finish it off.
We also talked about the idea, leads, that you want to make sure that while you're doing your turn, if you're going to continue your paddle in the other direction, you want to make sure that your body continues to do that rotation instead of stopping when you do your weight change. Once you stop and you are all the way over 1 foot, it's a lot harder to get that rotational movement going again. Okay.
And that was all we covered in week 2.
Yep.
Hope to see you in week 3.
We'll see you next week. We're going to move on from here and start adding in some turn thingies. So, we'll see you then.